She was boyish, she had an opinion, she was independent, she was sassy, and she was determined to live a life that was modern. Is this the outspoken pigtailed Pippi Longstocking or the Swedish author who created her? It turns out that both are correct. Born in 1907, Astrid Anna Amelia Eriksson was raised in a close-knit town in southern Sweden by a very religious family. She began charting her own course when she was a teenager, which was pretty unusual for the time. She began to wear trousers and cut her hair short. She started writing, and a local newspaper editor named Reinhold Blomberg, who knew her parents, noticed her obvious talent. She was one of the few female trainees hired by him. At the time, Astrid was just 19 years old. She did well at the newspaper, but her editor wasn't just interested in her writing skills. Blomberg was still married despite the fact that he was divorcing his second wife. The youngest of his 7 children was the same age as Astrid. Astrid and Blomberg soon began an affair. Girls are so silly, according to Jens Andersson's new biography Astrid Lindgren, the woman behind Pippi Longstocking, she later told a TV interviewer. He was the only person who had ever been truly in love with me before. Naturally, I found it to be quite thrilling. The relationship was exciting until Astrid became pregnant, at which point it became problematic. To put it mildly, the incident was scandalous. Her parents, who were tenant farmers at the rectory nearby, felt betrayed and horrified. They were concerned about how their neighbors would evaluate the actions of their daughter. Astrid made the determined decision to leave the suffocating confines of small-town life and flee to Copenhagen, where she would give birth anonymously in a cosmopolitan city that was more forgiving. Being the subject of gossip felt almost like being in a snake pit, she wrote in her biography, so I decided to leave the snake pit as soon as possible. Lasse, Astrid's son, was raised by a foster mother in Denmark for the first few years of his life. Meanwhile, Astrid lived in a boarding house in Stockholm to learn stenography, a skill that would come in handy when she started publishing fiction. It appears she by and by had an unsanctioned romance with her employer, as she wedded her boss, Sture Lindgren, in 1931, shortly after his divorce from his wife was finalized. Lasse came to live with them after they tied the knot. 3 years later, Astrid had a daughter, Karen. As many children do, Karen begged her mother to tell her a story when she was 7 years old and in bed with pneumonia and boredom. On the spot, Karen made up the name, "Tell me a Pippi Longstocking story." Astrid Lindgren stated to The New Yorker in 1983, "I didn't ask her who Pippi Longstocking was. I just started the story, and since it was a strange name it turned out to be a strange girl as well." The strange girl was a reflection of both her creator and the time period in which she was born. According to Andersson's fascinating biography, Pippi was a response not only to the war but to the people behind its lunacy with their urge to terrorize and destroy. Astrid's war diaries from 1941 to 1943 show. When Pippi Longstocking first came out in 1945, the public was captivated by the rule-breaker, authority-defying, but fair and kind-hearted Pippi, who was coming back from the brutal war years. As a proponent of the rights of children, Lindgren rose to prominence and influence in her home nation immediately. However, Astrid Lindgren's turbulent personal life was not without scandal yet. Sture, her husband, fell in love with another woman. Although Astrid and Sture did not get divorced, he died of a heart attack at 51 shortly after. Her life was also fraught with controversy. She found out in 1976 that the law about taxes would effectively charge her a rate of 102%. She used her pen to fight the injustice and, if that counts as a victory, won by lowering her tax rate to 80%. In 2002, Astrid Lindgren passed away at the age of 94.